The galactic marketplace of Viren Station was a vibrant, bustling nexus where species from across the universe traded goods, technology, and culture. Towering alien structures, glowing with multicolored lights, lined the station's corridors, and the air was filled with the chatter of countless languages, some musical, others mechanical. For James Harland, the lone human assigned as Earth's liaison to the station, it was equal parts exciting and exhausting. Standing at the edge of his modest Earth kiosk, James adjusted the straps of his cargo vest and sighed. The day had been quiet, with most passers-by barely sparing a glance at the tiny display of human products he had arranged on the counter. Protein bars, James muttered, eyeing the rows of neatly packaged snacks. The pinnacle of human innovation, and nobody cares. The product wasn't flashy compared to the dazzling gadgets or exotic spices other vendors were selling, but James had insisted that humanity's versatile and nutrient-packed protein bars had their own charm. A moment later, a towering alien with emerald skin and elongated limbs approached. It was a Krolaxian, a species known for their serious demeanor and deep, gravelly voices. The alien peered at the kiosk with what seemed to be mild curiosity. "You there," the Krolaxian rumbled, pointing a clawed finger at James. "What is this?" James perked up, his smile as bright as the holographic sign above the stand. "Oh, this? It's a protein bar. A snack. Compact, nutritious, and surprisingly tasty. Great for when you're on the go." The Krolaxian picked up one of the bars, turning it over in their long, dexterous fingers, their bright yellow eyes narrowed. "Why is it sealed?" "It's to keep it fresh," James said, opening one of the wrappers to demonstrate. "Here, try it. On the house." The aliens sniffed the exposed bar, their expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate movements, they handed it back to James. "No, thank you," the Krolaxian said, their tone cold. "Your snack is highly suspicious." Before James could protest, the alien turned and strode off, disappearing into the crowded marketplace. Suspicious, James mumbled, confused. He bit into the bar himself and shrugged. "Tastes fine to me." Known to James, the Krolaxian had gone directly to the station's security headquarters. Standing before a panel of stern-looking alien officers, the Krolaxian placed the unopened protein bar on the table. "This human item," they declared, "is highly suspect. Its dense construction, peculiar composition, and sealed packaging resemble known biochemical containment devices. I suspect it may be a weapon." The security officers leaned in, their faces grim. The next morning, James was jolted awake by the sharp chirp of his communicator. Groggy and still in his rumpled uniform, he stumbled toward the terminal in his quarters and pressed a button. "James Harland, this is Officer Varlek of Viren Station Security," a brusque voice announced. "You are to report to Security Command immediately." "Security Command," James repeated, his stomach nodding. "What's this about?" The officer didn't elaborate, and James had no choice but to obey. Minutes later, he was standing in the intimidatingly sterile security headquarters, facing a semicircle of alien officers. At the center of the table was a protein bar. "Is this yours?" asked Varlek, a stern-looking Russian with silvery skin and piercing eyes. James blinked. "Yes, it's from my kiosk. What's going on?" The officer leaned forward. "Do you deny that this item could be used as a bioweapon?" James stared, baffled. "A bioweapon? It's a snack. You eat it." Varlek exchanged glances with the other officers. "Our analysts have examined the item. Its dense structure, high caloric content, and energy yield are alarming. Combined with its small size and portability, it could easily be distributed covertly to incapacitate entire populations." "Wait," what James said, laughing nervously. "It's a protein bar. It's supposed to be dense. That's the point. Energy on the go." The officers weren't convinced. One of them, a squat, scaly Ryzan, tapped the table with a claw. "Why is it sealed in such a way? If it is harmless, why the need for containment?" "To keep it from going stale," James said, exasperated. "It's food science, not espionage." The officers deliberated in hushed tones before turning back to James. "We will conduct further testing," Varlek said. "Until then, your kiosk is to remain closed, and you are prohibited from distributing these items." James opened his mouth to argue but thought better of it. "Fine," he muttered, "but you're making a big deal out of nothing." Over the next several days, chaos erupted on Viren Station as rumors spread. The alien populace became convinced that humans had attempted to smuggle bioweapons into the marketplace under the guise of snacks. James became the center of attention and suspicion. Everywhere he went, he heard whispers. "Did you see the human's weapon? It looks so harmless. I heard it can release toxins on contact. Humans are more devious than we thought." Security teams even cordoned off his kiosk, placing the protein bars in containment units usually reserved for hazardous materials. Frustrated but determined to clear his name, James decided to take matters into his own hands. He started visiting neighboring vendors, explaining the situation and handing out samples. "It's just food," he insisted to a skeptical Nolari merchant. "Try it, and you'll see." The merchant sniffed the bar suspiciously. "And what happens if I ingest this? Human creation." "You'll probably want another," James said with a grin. To his surprise, the merchant hesitated for only a moment before taking a cautious bite. Their expression shifted from suspicion to surprise, and finally to delight. "This is pleasant," the Nolari admitted. Encouraged, James continued his outreach. Slowly but surely, more aliens began to try the bars. But just as things seemed to be improving, disaster struck. A Retian official, curious but cautious, ingested a bar in front of a gathering crowd. Moments later, the official clutched their abdomen and collapsed. Pandemonium ensued. Security swarmed the scene, dragging James away as the crowd shouted accusations. "I didn't poison anyone," James protested as he was hauled to a holding cell. "There's nothing wrong with the bars." But the damage was done. The incident ignited a full-scale investigation, and Earth's presence on Viren Station was thrown into jeopardy. James sat in the sterile, gray confines of the holding cell, his mind racing. Through the reinforced glass, he could see alien officers bustling about, some glancing his way with suspicion. His communicator had been confiscated, leaving him isolated and frustrated. He replayed the incident over and over in his head. The Retian official collapsing after eating the bar, it didn't make sense. The bars were perfectly safe. He had eaten countless of them himself, and they were tested to comply with Earth's strict dietary standards. The door hissed open, and Officer Varlek entered, his silvery skin catching the room's dim light. He held a datapad and a small containment case with one of the infamous bars inside. "James Harland," Varlek said, his voice measured, "our investigation has deepened. The Retian official who collapsed is in critical condition. Initial scans revealed elevated energy levels in their system consistent with metabolic disruption." James stood, his frustration boiling over. "It's not the bar. It's probably an allergy or a reaction to an ingredient their biology can't handle. I told you, it's food, not a weapon." Varlek raised an eyebrow. "Are you claiming ignorance of the potential effects your snack could have on alien physiology?" "I'm saying," James shot back, "that I didn't invent protein bars to sabotage anyone. Humans eat these all the time. We're not used to everyone else's biochemistry, and maybe you aren't used to ours." Varlek regarded him in silence for a moment. Then, gesturing for James to follow, he said, "Perhaps you can explain this directly to the council." The station's council chamber was an imposing room, its walls lined with holographic panels that displayed shifting constellations. Seated around a long table were the council members, a mix of Retian, Zentari, Maltran, and other species, each exuding an air of authority. James stood in the center, feeling like a lone grain of sand on a vast beach. Varlek presented the protein bar to the council. "This is the item in question. Its effects are currently under investigation." A Zentari counselor, their golden eyes gleaming, leaned forward. "Human, explain why this item caused harm to a respected Retian official." James took a deep breath. It didn't. At least not intentionally. The bar is made for human consumption, and while it's nutritionally dense, it's perfectly safe for us. Your official might have had a reaction because of a biological incompatibility. The counselors murmured among themselves. A Maltran diplomat, their translucent form pulsing softly, spoke next. Your argument presumes goodwill, but what assurances do we have that this was not a deliberate act? The compact design, the sealed packaging, it resembles dangerous devices we have encountered before. James clenched his fists but kept his tone calm. It's a design choice to keep the bars fresh and portable. If you don't believe me, test them. I've got nothing to hide. We already have set a Rizon counselor, their voice a low growl, and the results are complicated. The bar contains compounds that, while harmless to humans, could disrupt the delicate balance of certain alien biologies. A Rishan counselor added, the energy density of this bar is also far higher than most species consume in a single sitting. To us, it could be seen as an overload akin to injecting raw fuel into a delicate system. James winced. Okay, that's fair, but it's not malicious. It's just how we make snacks. The council continued their deliberation, the atmosphere heavy with tension. As the meeting adjourned, James was escorted back to his quarters under guard. His kiosk remained shut down, and rumors about humanity's supposed bioweapon snacks continued to spread. But James wasn't ready to give up. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was fixing problems. He spent the next several days working tirelessly, consulting Earth's database on interspecies dietary compatibility and reaching out to sympathetic vendors on the station for advice. A Nolari merchant, who had enjoyed the bars earlier, offered a crucial insight. The problem isn't just the density, they said, their luminescent eyes flickering. It's how different species metabolize energy. If you could create a version that releases energy more slowly, it might be better tolerated. James got to work, modifying the protein bars using ingredients sourced from other vendors on the station. He adjusted the recipe to include compounds that slowed energy absorption and removed potential allergens that could affect alien physiology. Finally, he packaged the new version of the bars and submitted them to the council for testing. A week later, James was summoned to another council meeting. This time, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The counselors seemed less accusatory and more curious. The revised bars you submitted have been tested, Varlek announced. Initial results show that they are far better suited for interspecies consumption. James exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. A Zentari counselor leaned forward. Human innovation is perplexing. You transformed a source of controversy into a potential unifying product. James scratched the back of his head. Well, humans are used to improvising. We mess up sometimes, but we try to fix it. The Maltran diplomat's soft glow brightened. Perhaps this incident was not a malicious act, but a lesson in cultural exchange. Your snack, while misunderstood, may bridge gaps rather than create them. To James's surprise, the council approved the sale of the revised bars, though with strict labeling to indicate potential risks for certain species. His kiosk reopened, now with a steady stream of curious customers eager to try the new human snacks. Some still eyed the bars warily, but others embraced them, marveling at their efficiency and taste. As James handed a bar to a Zentari soldier one busy afternoon, he couldn't help but smile. What had started as a diplomatic nightmare had turned into an unexpected success. Humans had a knack for turning misunderstandings into opportunities, and James was just getting started. The protein bar debacle seemed to be resolved, but James soon realized the situation was far from over. While many on Viren Station had begun accepting the revised bars, rumors about their original form persisted, spreading beyond the station to nearby sectors. Reports of human bioweapons disguised as food reached influential trade hubs and even the Central Galactic Federation Council. One morning, James was jolted from sleep by the urgent buzz of his communicator. He groaned and rolled over, pressing the device. Harland, this is bad, came the voice of Lena Jarek, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Federation. James sat up, his heart sinking. How bad? Your protein bars are now being labeled a potential bioterror threat in 3 sectors. Several species are demanding Earth issue an apology and recall the product entirely. James rubbed his temples. That's ridiculous. The bars aren't dangerous. I know that, and you know that, Lena said, her tone sharp. but perceptions matter. You need to leave Viren Station immediately and attend a special hearing at the Federation Council. Pack your things. A transport is en route. 2 hours later, James boarded the transport, his nerves frazzled. He carried a case of the revised bars as evidence and spent the journey rehearsing his arguments. The Federation Council chambers were far more imposing than anything James had encountered on Viren Station. The massive circular hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, each seated in their designated sections. Holographic screens displayed a dossier on the human protein bar incident, complete with sensationalized headlines from galactic news outlets. James stood in the center of the chamber, feeling unbearably small. Human representative, a deep, resonant voice called. The speaker was a towering Akoran counselor with translucent scales that shimmered as they moved. You have been summoned to address the growing concern regarding your species' so-called snack. James cleared his throat. Counselors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. First, I want to make it clear that the protein bar is not a weapon. It's food. Dense, nutritious, and designed for humans, but food nonetheless. The crowd murmured. A slender Sarnix representative spoke next, their voice soft but sharp. If it is merely food, why have there been incidents of harm, including the near-fatal collapse of a Retian official? James winced. That incident was due to biological incompatibilities, not malice. Humans and many other species have different metabolisms, and our food isn't always interchangeable. We've since modified the recipe to be safer for broader consumption. He held up a revised bar and gestured to the holographic screens. These are the new version, designed specifically with interspecies tolerances in mind. They've already been approved on Viren Station and are selling well. The Akoran counselor tilted their head. Yet concerns remain. Even if unintentional, could not such dense, energy-rich items be weaponized under the guise of food? James sighed. Anything can be weaponized if someone's determined enough. A bag of flour, a wrench, even a chair. That doesn't mean flour, wrenches, or chairs are inherently dangerous. The chamber filled with murmurs, some contemplative, others skeptical. A Zentari counselor stood next, their golden eyes narrowing. You claim to act in goodwill, yet your species' history of innovation often blurs the line between utility and destruction. How do we trust your intentions? James paused, choosing his words carefully. Humans aren't perfect. We're messy, impulsive, and sometimes short-sighted. But we're also adaptable and creative. This whole incident started as a misunderstanding, but instead of doubling down, we made changes. We're willing to learn and improve. Isn't that what interspecies cooperation is about? The chamber grew quiet. To James's relief, the Maltran diplomat from Viren Station spoke next. Their translucent form pulsed with soft blues and greens. It is true that the human's revised product has gained acceptance on Viren Station. Perhaps this is an example of cultural exchange, a reminder that our differences require patience and understanding. The Akoran counselor nodded slowly. We will deliberate further. For now, the human will remain under observation, and no further distribution of the original protein bar will be allowed. James was escorted from the chamber, his nerves still frayed. The hearing had been intense, but he sensed he had made progress. Over the next week, James worked with Lena and other Earth representatives to launch an educational campaign about human food culture. They created videos and holographic presentations explaining the history and science of the protein bar, emphasizing its harmless intent. The campaign gained traction, with many species expressing curiosity rather than suspicion. But just as James thought the controversy was settling, a new complication arose. A shipment of the original protein bars somehow missed in the recall was found in a cargo hold on a distant colony. When scanned, the bar's energy density triggered alarms in the colony's security systems, reigniting fears. James was called back to the Federation Council, where the issue took on new urgency. This time he proposed a bold solution, a live demonstration. In front of a packed chamber, James set up a small cooking station. He unwrapped one of the original bars and placed it on a cutting board. Then, with practiced efficiency, he broke it down and combined it with ingredients from other species, creating small, colorful snacks tailored to their unique biologies. Protein bars are versatile, James explained. They're not just for humans. With a little creativity, they can be adapted to any species. Food isn't just sustenance, it's a way to connect. The demonstration was a success. Counselors sampled the snacks, many nodding in approval. The session ended with applause, and James left the chamber feeling triumphant. The Federation Council eventually lifted the restrictions, allowing the revised bars to be distributed under strict labeling guidelines. What had begun as a diplomatic nightmare ended as a testament to the power of understanding and adaptation. James returned to Viren Station a hero, his kiosk busier than ever. Aliens of all shapes and sizes lined up to sample the snacks that had once caused so much controversy. As James handed a glowing bar to a curious Zentari child, he couldn't help but smile. Humans might stumble into trouble, but they always found a way to make things right, and sometimes even better than before. Despite the resolution on the galactic stage, James quickly discovered that managing the aftermath of the protein bar fiasco required constant vigilance. While most species on Viren Station had embraced the revised bars, a small but vocal contingent of skeptics remained unconvinced. Rumors continued to circulate in the darker corners of the marketplace, with whispers about secret weaponized shipments and shadowy human plots. Conspiracy theorists dissected every aspect of the bar, from its ingredients to its packaging, crafting elaborate stories about hidden codes and latent chemical triggers. One afternoon, James stood at his bustling kiosk, handing a bar to a Zentari engineer, when a stern-looking Rishan officer approached. This wasn't just any officer, it was Varlek, who had been central to the initial investigation. Harland, Varlek said, his silvery face unreadable. "We need to talk." James sighed. "Let me guess. Another rumor." "This is more than a rumor," Varlek said gravely. "A shipment of your bars marked with your kiosk's logo was intercepted near the war-torn sector of Virath Delta. They were found alongside contraband energy cells. The local authorities are calling it evidence of an interspecies sabotage plot." James's jaw dropped. "That's impossible. I don't distribute bars outside this station. Someone must be using my branding to stir up trouble." "That is our suspicion as well," Varlek admitted. "However, proving it will be difficult. Until we resolve this, you and your products will remain under scrutiny." James clenched his fists but forced himself to stay calm. "Then let me help. Whoever's behind this is hurting my reputation and Earth's." Varlek hesitated before nodding. "Very well, but understand that you will be working under our oversight." The investigation began immediately. Varlek, along with a team of security officers, delved into supply chain records, surveillance footage, and shipping logs. James spent hours reviewing his own transactions and interviewing vendors who might have sold knockoff versions of his product. The breakthrough came when a Nolari trader confessed to purchasing counterfeit bars from a shady off-world distributor. The trader provided a description of the seller, a wiry human who claimed to represent Earth's interests. James frowned. "That's not anyone I know. But if they're human, maybe they're from one of the fringe colonies." Varlek's team traced the distributor's route to a smuggling ring operating out of a nearby system. The smugglers had been repurposing James's branding to lend credibility to their contraband operations, knowing that human-made goods had gained a reputation for being both innovative and, ironically, controversial. Determined to clear his name, James volunteered to accompany Varlek's team on their mission to confront the smugglers. The operation took them to a derelict freighter orbiting a desolate moon. As their shuttle docked, James felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He wasn't a soldier or a spy, just a guy who sold protein bars. Inside the freighter, the team encountered a chaotic scene: crates of counterfeit goods, illegal energy cells, and a motley crew of smugglers led by a wiry human who matched the Nolari trader's description. When confronted, the leader sneered. "What's the big deal? We're just filling a demand. People love these bars. Why should you have all the profit?" "You're not filling a demand," James snapped. "You're creating chaos and ruining lives. Do you have any idea how much damage you've done to Earth's reputation? To mine?" The smuggler shrugged. "Reputation's overrated. Profit isn't." Varlek and his team quickly subdued the smugglers and confiscated their cargo. Among the counterfeit bars, James spotted poorly sealed packages and dangerously altered recipes. One bar, when scanned, contained an unstable energy core likely the source of the alarms at Virath Delta. This, James said, holding up the offending bar, is what happens when you let greed take over. It's not just reckless, it's dangerous. Back on Viren Station, the successful bust was announced to the public, clearing James of any lingering suspicion. The station's leadership commended him for his cooperation and resilience, and his kiosk received an influx of customers eager to support the real thing. As the crowds thinned one evening, James leaned against his counter, exhaustion finally catching up to him. Varlek approached, his usually stoic expression softened. "You handled yourself well," the Retian officer said. "Didn't feel like it," James admitted with a weary smile. "But thanks. I just want to get back to selling snacks without all the drama." Varlek nodded. "Your persistence has proven that humans are more than capable of navigating intergalactic challenges. I underestimated you." James chuckled. "Humans have a way of surprising people. It's kind of our thing." In the weeks that followed, the story of the protein bar incident became a cautionary tale and a case study in interspecies cooperation. James's revised bars were officially endorsed by Viren Station's leadership, and demand for them spread across the galaxy. What had begun as a misunderstanding and spiraled into chaos had ultimately become a testament to the human spirit, resourceful, determined, and endlessly adaptable. As James packed up his kiosk one evening, he couldn't help but smile. The journey had been anything but smooth, but in the end he had proven that even the simplest things, a snack, a smile, a bit of persistence, could bridge the vast distances between worlds.